My name is Catherine, and this is how my life took an unexpected turn. After graduating from law school, I secured a position as a lawyer's assistant at a major trading company. The office layout was a labyrinth of cubicles and private spaces. On my third day, while searching for the copy room, I accidentally collided with Mark from the purchasing team. "Whoa," he laughed, helping me steady myself. "You must be new." "I'm Mark." "Yes, I'm Catherine," I answered, embarrassed. "I'm the new lawyer's assistant, and I'm a bit lost." Mark's eyes sparkled. "Well, Catherine, I'll be your personal GPS. Where are you headed?" From that point, Mark and I became fast friends. We chat during lunch breaks, and he often found reasons to visit my department. Over time, our friendship evolved into something deeper. One Friday evening, as we were leaving the office, Mark asked, "Hey, Catherine, how about grabbing dinner? There's a great Italian spot nearby." I paused for a moment and smiled. "I'd love to." That dinner marked the start of our romantic relationship. We dated for a year, our connection growing stronger every day. Mark was everything I wanted in a partner: supportive, funny, and caring. On our first anniversary, Mark proposed, and we tied the knot 6 months later in an intimate ceremony with our closest family and friends. Mark's mother, Linda, attended, but she seemed less than pleased. I overheard her quietly saying to a relative during the reception, "He could have done better," she muttered, unaware that I could hear. "There are plenty of successful, wealthy women, but no, he chose her." Her words stung, but I didn't let them steal my joy. Mark loved me, and that was all that mattered. After our wedding, we decided to buy an apartment. I had inherited a sizable sum from my grandmother, so we split the cost 50-50. It was a charming 2-bedroom unit in a lovely neighborhood, perfect for starting our new life together. A year into our marriage, life had fallen into a comfortable routine. We were both thriving in our careers, and our weekends were spent relaxing and exploring the city. Everything seemed perfect until one morning when I woke up feeling off. At first, I dismissed it as just a stomach bug. But as days went by and the nausea didn't subside, a thought began to form in my mind. Could I be pregnant? That afternoon, I bought a pregnancy test on my way to work and during lunch sneaked into the office bathroom to take it. The 2 minutes of waiting felt like an eternity. When I finally checked the result, my heart skipped a beat. 2 pink lines. That evening, I planned to surprise Mark with the news. I picked up his favorite takeout and set the table with candles. When he walked in, he raised an eyebrow. "What's the occasion?" he asked, hanging up his coat. I took a deep breath. "Mark, I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was heavy. Mark's face shifted through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and then disappointment. "Are you sure?" he asked finally, his voice tight. I nodded, my earlier excitement fading. "I took a test today. It's positive." Mark sat down heavily, running a hand through his hair. "Catherine, don't you think it's too soon? We've only been married a year. We haven't had time to really enjoy each other yet. Maybe we should think about our options." I felt as though I had been drenched in cold water. "Options? Are you suggesting an abortion?" Mark shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "It's just something to consider. We're both focused on our careers. A baby would change everything." I stood up, my hands trembling. "I can't believe you're saying this. This is our child, Mark. I'm keeping it." The following days were tense. Mark and I avoided addressing the issue, but the unspoken tension grew. I made an appointment with a doctor, hoping to hear something that would change Mark's perspective. Unfortunately, the news wasn't what I expected. Dr. Patel, a gentle woman, looked at me with concern. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm afraid your pregnancy is considered high risk," she said softly. "You'll need to take extra care. Less stress, more rest, and plenty of relaxation." I felt as if the world had shifted beneath me. "What does that mean for the baby?" Dr. Patel squeezed my hand. "It means we'll need to keep a close eye on you. There's a risk of miscarriage, but with the right care, we can minimize it." I left the clinic in a daze. How could I reduce stress when my own husband didn't want our child? When I arrived home, I found Mark sitting on the couch, watching TV. "How did it go?" he asked, not even looking at me. I took a deep breath. "The pregnancy is high risk. I need to reduce stress and rest more. I'm going to ask if I can work from home." Mark clenched his jaw. "Catherine, I really think we need to reconsider this. It's not too late to stop." I cut him off. I've made my decision, Mark. I'm having this baby, with or without your support. The next morning, I nervously approached my boss, Mr. Jameson, explaining my situation and requesting to work remotely. Thankfully, he was very understanding. Your health and the health of your baby are what matter most, Catherine, he said kindly. We'll make sure you have everything you need to work from home. I felt a small relief, but it was short-lived. When I told Mark about the arrangement, his response was less than supportive. Great, he muttered. So you'll be home all day doing what, exactly? I stared at him, astonished. Working, Mark, and taking care of myself and our baby. He scoffed and walked away, leaving me feeling more isolated than ever. As the weeks went on, I immersed myself in work and baby preparations. I read every pregnancy book I could find, ate healthier, and even started prenatal yoga. Meanwhile, Mark became more distant. He stayed late at work, claiming to be picking up my slack. He started taking unexpected business trips on weekends, never mentioning them beforehand. I tried to talk to him, but he brushed me off. One evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Mark's mother, Linda. I thought I'd stop by and check on you, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I invited her in, trying to ignore the critical way her eyes scanned my growing belly. Mark tells me you're working from home now, she said, sitting down on the couch. I nodded. Yes, the doctor advised it for the baby's health. You know, Catherine, she said, leaning forward, a child isn't always the blessing people think it is, especially when it comes at the wrong time. My temper flared. There's never a perfect time for a baby, Linda. We'll make it work. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. Are you sure about that? Mark is young and ambitious. He needs a partner who can support his career, not hold him back. Don't make him regret his choice. A few days later, as Mark prepared for his workday, I caught a faint scent in the air, something unfamiliar, floral and sweet. It wasn't my fragrance. I froze, my mind racing. New cologne? I asked, trying to sound casual. Mark looked momentarily taken aback, then shrugged. Oh yeah, just a sample. Do you like it? I forced a smile. It's nice. But as he left for work, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was terribly off. The scent wasn't cologne, and it definitely wasn't a sample. It was high-end women's perfume clinging to my husband's shirt like a silent accusation. The next morning, after Mark left, I picked up my phone with trembling fingers. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed, my cousin Jack. He worked for a detective agency, and if anyone could uncover the truth, it was him. Hey, Kath, Jack answered cheerfully. What's up? I took a deep breath. Jack, I need your help. It's about Mark. I explained it all. The late nights, the business trips, the perfume. My voice cracked as I finished. I think he's cheating on me. Jack, I need to know for sure. Jack's tone softened. I'll look into it, Kath. Give me a couple of weeks, okay? In the meantime, I buried myself in work and preparing for the baby. I ordered a crib, picked out paint samples for the nursery, anything to distract myself. But the constant anxiety gnawed at me. 3 long weeks later, Jack called. Can you meet me at the cafe on 5th Street? His voice was serious. An hour later, I sat across from Jack in a quiet corner of the cafe. He slid a manila envelope toward me. I'm sorry, Catherine, he said softly, but you were right. With trembling hands, I tore open the envelope. Inside were dozens of photos, Mark entering hotels, eating at restaurants, strolling through the park. In every picture, he was with the same woman, young, blonde, beautiful. Her name is Melissa, Jack explained. She's a new hire in Mark's department. They've been together for at least a month, maybe more. I stared at the photos, numb. How could he do this? Jack's hand reached across the table and squeezed mine. There's more. Mark told you he was on a business trip this weekend, right? I nodded, dreading what was coming next. He lied, Jack said. He's with her now, at the Westview Hotel, room 412. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. The taxi ride home was a blur. When I finally stumbled through the door, clutching the envelope of damning photos, I was shocked to find Linda, my mother-in-law, sitting in the living room. Oh, Catherine, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I thought I'd tidy up while Mark's away. Lord knows you don't do much around here these days. Her words, piled on top of everything else, were the final straw. He's not on a business trip, I snapped. He's with his mistress right now. Linda's eyes widened before narrowing in suspicion. Well, if he is, and I'm not saying he is, can you blame him? Look at you. You're always sick, you've let yourself go, and you never pay attention to him. This pregnancy was a mistake. No one wants this baby except you. Something inside me snapped. Get out, I hissed. Get out of my house right now. Linda stared at me for a moment and sneered. Gladly. Don't come crying to me when Mark leaves you. As the front door slammed behind Linda, I collapsed onto the floor, my mind spinning from her hurtful words. But as the initial shock faded, a new emotion took hold. Determination. I couldn't sit idly by while my husband betrayed me. With shaky hands, I picked myself up and grabbed my car keys. I knew where Mark was, and I was going to confront him. The drive to the Westview Hotel felt like a blur, my thoughts a chaotic whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of room 412. Laughter spilled from inside, Mark's deep chuckle and a woman's high-pitched giggle. My stomach churned, but I steeled myself and knocked on the door. Must be room service, a woman's voice called out cheerfully. We've been waiting for that champagne. My heart hammered in my chest. The door swung open, revealing Mark, his smile freezing when he saw me. Catherine, he stammered, clearly caught off guard. What are you doing here? I brushed past him into the room, my eyes locking on the blonde woman hurriedly wrapping herself in a sheet. Melissa, I said, my voice trembling. Mark, I began, my voice quaking. How could you? But to my surprise, instead of apologizing or trying to explain, Mark's face hardened. How could I? He scoffed. How could you, Catherine? You haven't satisfied me in months. All you care about is that baby. His words struck me like a physical blow. I staggered back, my vision blurring. Mark continued, his voice dripping with disdain. You don't take care of yourself anymore. Look at Melissa. He gestured toward his mistress. That's how a woman should look. That's how you used to be. Melissa piped up, her tone sickeningly sweet. You should be thankful to us, you know. We're being considerate, waiting for you to have the baby before Mark leaves you. We're the honest ones here. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my abdomen, far worse than anything I'd ever felt before. My vision darkened, and I felt myself losing consciousness. Mark, I gasped, reaching for him as I collapsed. Please, call an ambulance. But Mark and Melissa were already gathering their things, shoving me aside. They roughly grabbed my arms and dragged me out into the hallway. You brought this on yourself, Mark said coldly, stepping over me as I lay on the floor. The last thing I saw before slipping into unconsciousness was their retreating figures, leaving me abandoned in my time of need. I woke with a start, a concerned hotel maid hovering over me. My whole body ached, and the pain in my abdomen was unbearable. Ma'am, are you okay? I've called an ambulance, the maid said, her voice filled with concern. I tried to speak, but only managed a weak groan. The next few hours passed in a blur of sirens, bright lights, and urgent voices. I drifted in and out of consciousness, always aware of the gnawing fear for my baby. When I finally regained full awareness, I found myself in a hospital bed. A doctor stood beside me, her face solemn. Mrs. Thompson, she said gently, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but you've lost the baby. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I shut my eyes, tears streaming down my face as the reality of the situation settled in. My grief quickly transformed into fury. Mark, his mother, that woman, Melissa. They were all responsible. Their cruelty and selfishness had taken my child from me. Once I was discharged, I went straight to our apartment. With grim determination, I packed Mark's things into boxes. Then I drove to Linda's house. I dumped the boxes unceremoniously in her driveway before marching up to her front door. Linda opened it, her face masking false concern. Catherine, darling, I heard what happened. Such a tragedy, Linda said, her voice lacking any real sympathy. I shoved past her into the house. Save your pity, Linda. You don't care, I snapped. The pretense dropped instantly. Well, what did you expect? It's actually for the best. Now you and Mark can finalize your divorce, and you can leave that apartment behind. I stared at her stunned. Leave? That apartment is just as much mine, I shot back. Linda waved dismissively. Details, details. Mark has some of the best lawyers, you know. They'll make sure he gets it all. You're just not the right fit for him, Catherine. Too simple for his world. It's better if you just go quietly and don't cause any trouble. I felt my hands ball into fists. I won't leave quietly, I hissed. I'm fighting for that apartment, for everything. Your son and his mistress killed my baby, and I won't let them get away with it. Linda paled slightly but quickly regained her composure. Don't be dramatic, Catherine. These things happen. No one's to blame. As I turned to leave, something hit me. I spun back to face her. Tell me, Linda, how would you feel if you lost your child? If someone's cruelty and selfishness took your baby from you? For the first time, Linda looked genuinely shaken. She opened her mouth, then shut it again, at a loss for words. I nodded, a cold satisfaction settling over me. Thought so. Determined, I reached out to Alex, an old college friend now a successful divorce attorney. I explained my situation, and without hesitation, he reassured me. I've got your back, Catherine. We'll make sure you get what you deserve. The trial was a battle. Mark and Melissa stuck to their story, claiming I was just a woman with a broken mind, fabricating an affair to explain my grief. Your Honor, Mark's lawyer argued, Mrs. Thompson is clearly suffering from a breakdown after her loss. There's no affair, just the vivid imagination of a grieving woman. But Alex had prepared for this. With the judge's nod, he presented the evidence. I'd like to submit these photographs into evidence, Alex said, passing them to the judge. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as Mark and Melissa's faces drained of color. Then came the knockout blow. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have video evidence from the Westview Hotel. The footage rolled, showing Mark and Melissa dragging my unconscious body down the hall, laughing as they abandoned me. Gasps filled the room. The hotel maid's testimony followed, describing how she had found me unconscious and immediately called for help. By the time she finished, not a single person in the room was sympathetic to Mark or Melissa. The judge's verdict came swiftly. Given the evidence presented, I rule in favor of Mrs. Thompson. Mr. Thompson will compensate for emotional distress, and all marital assets will be split equally. As we exited the courtroom, a weight lifted off my shoulders. It wasn't a total victory. My baby was gone, but it was a start. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I found a small apartment, started seeing a therapist, and slowly began healing. Just as I was getting back on track, my phone rang with an unexpected caller. Catherine. Linda's voice was hesitant. Can we meet? Please? Everything in me screamed to decline, but curiosity pushed me forward. Fine. The cafe on 5th Street, tomorrow at 2. When I arrived, Linda looked nothing like the confident woman I'd known. The polished exterior was gone, replaced by someone who looked utterly defeated. Catherine, she said, her voice shaking. I was wrong about you. She went on to explain how Melissa had twisted Mark against his own mother, and they were planning to sell Linda's house, leaving her with nothing. I've heard rumors, Linda continued, her eyes filled with tears. They're plotting something at the company, something illegal, Catherine. I know I have no right to ask, but you're the only one who can stop them. I sat back, shocked. Part of me wanted to walk away and let them destroy each other, but when Linda mentioned the company, my company, I felt a sense of responsibility I couldn't ignore. With my legal experience, diving into company documents wasn't too daunting. I spent days examining contracts, purchase orders, and financial reports, slowly revealing a disturbing pattern. Mark's department had been consistently overpaying for goods far above market prices. At first, I thought it was incompetence, but soon it became clear that the inflated prices always benefited the same suppliers, and the discrepancies started when Melissa joined the company. The worst part was still to come. I uncovered plans for a major contract that could make or break the company's fiscal year. Mark was poised to buy substandard goods at premium prices, a move that would ruin the company's profits and reputation. Armed with a file full of damning evidence, I walked into the CEO's office. Mr. Jameson looked up, surprised. Catherine, what's this about? Sir, I said firmly, you need to see this immediately. For the next hour, I laid out everything I'd uncovered. Mr. Jameson's expression grew darker with every passing moment. This is unbelievable, he said finally. Catherine, I can't thank you enough for bringing this to our attention. We'll launch a full investigation right away. The following weeks were a whirlwind. I found myself at the heart of an internal investigation, providing testimony and evidence. Mark and Melissa were suspended. When it was all over, the evidence was undeniable. The company filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against them, and criminal charges soon followed. I watched in court as they were both convicted, knowing they'd never hold power again. In the aftermath, Mr. Jameson called me back into his office. This time, his face was full of smiles. "Catherine, your work on this case was exceptional. We'd like to offer you a promotion to senior lawyer and present you with an award for outstanding service to the company." I walked out of his office with a new title and a plaque, a mix of pride and bittersweet satisfaction in my heart. Weeks later, my phone rang again. It was Linda. Her voice was choked with emotion. "I heard what you did. You saved the company. You saved my house. I was so wrong about you. Can you forgive me?" "Linda," I answered gently, "I forgive you, but I think it's best if we part ways and move on." "I understand," she replied. "Thank you, Catherine, for everything." As I hung up, I knew a chapter of my life was finally closed. The pain would always linger, the ache for the child I lost, the life that could have been. But I had also discovered a strength within myself that I never knew existed. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.